All right, good evening, folks. Call the meeting to order at 7:01. And starting with our board norms, which are to maintain our focus, communicate respectfully, be present, keep the board productive and effective, and respect the agenda. And let's see, changes to the agenda, student report. Or is that, should be that, should there be a, is there supposed to be a split? Yeah, okay. Any changes to the agenda? All right, seeing none. Student report.
All right, soccer season came to a close a few weeks ago. The boys, I believe, made it to the second round. They lost a really close game, which was unfortunate. The girls made it all the way to the finals again. I believe that's the third year they made it. But they lost a really good game. So, good job, girls. The theater program put on Mean Girls this weekend. From all accounts I heard, it went really well and it was a lot of fun. This morning, NHS and Tri-Am put on a veterans breakfast. I was there. It was a lot of fun. Had a good showing. And winter sports start after Thanksgiving break, so November 27th. So we're excited to get on the basketball court.
All right. Thanks, Eli. Any questions for Eli? All right, appreciate your report. Thank you. Correspondence. I believe we can skip over that.
You got a couple about the preschool, but it's on your agenda, so I don't know if you want to talk about that when you get to that, or do you want to?
Let's see, how far down on the agenda are we looking at?
First under new business.
First under new business. Okay, yeah, let's just hold off until then. All right, moving on to old business. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of October 10th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
I have an edit, please.
Discussion, yes. What is your edit, Sarah?
Oh, sorry. I forgot that was the order.
That's okay.
I'm just not listed as present, and I was there.
You most definitely were there. Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Amend your motion to include Sarah? All right. Second?
Yeah, I'll amend the
All
second,
right.
of course.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's see, in Zoom land, we have Crystal and Sarah, is that correct?
Is that Emily too?
Emily?
And Emily, sorry. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Sue? Aye.
Hi.
Yeah.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Approved financials, I'm guessing that's you, Joe?
Yeah,
You have an
yeah.
idea?
Yes, I would make a motion to approve pay orders 29, 29A, I guess, a little addendum, and 32. They total $1,446,157.62.
Is that the motion?
Yep.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you,
I
Peter.
trust Joe.
Dana reviewed them too. He signs off. We each sign off on them.
Any
But I don't
discussion?
have Dana here to verify that, so.
The signatures on them.
Oh, well, that does it. There we go.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
I
All right, seeing no opposed, the ayes have it unanimously. Motion carries. We are on to Leland and Gray sprinkler system, existing condition site survey, and existing condition floor plan. Discussion?
Is Greg on there?
I don't know.
He's on vacation, isn't he?
He is, but I thought he was going to join us tonight for this.
Greg, are you on there? Not on.
Do we
Okay.
want to skip it until he joins, or just put it on the next meeting? Do we have to do something?
Yeah, is there a possible action that we need to take?
Can anyone else?
Today?
I believe so. I think we have a proposal.
Yeah. Two.
Hi, Keegan, can you mute yourself? Thank you.
I think he has a proposal from Stevens for the design, and then he went back to Stevens with a request to see if there's a way to reduce the design cost, because it was higher than he thought it ought to be, and so they worked out, they developed a new proposal that would put some of the tasks transferred from Stevens to Greg to save some money on the cost, stuff that he felt he could reasonably do. And so I think there's a reduced cost version of it, of the proposal, but I don't have it right in front of me right now. And he was more prepared to speak to that, so. I can shoot him a text and see if he is going to be.
Yeah.
You did, okay.
Oh, thanks.
I thought he told me he would join, so I could be wrong.
Okay. Well, we can circle back to it if when he shows up. Okay. Long-term planning update. I know you've got something.
Yeah. So after the last conversation, you guys had approved a certain amount of money, up to $10,000, to work with Stevens Associates to figure out next steps, in essence. There wasn't a specific target of that, but Al and I met with Brud and Diane from Stevens to kind of talk through what the discussion had been that day. That was August or September meeting. I think it was August. Does that sound right?
When we approved for the money,
Yeah.
it was the September meeting.
It was September, okay.
It was the September
So
meeting.
at the conversation that happened at that point, there was at least one new idea that was suggested that hadn't been explored in the list of the 5 years worth of stuff that I had compiled for you guys. And so we kind of talked all that through with Stevens, and then they came back with a proposal at the end of the last week, which I can send to you guys. But in short, what they're suggesting is that they're looking at, they want to include additional Leland grade schools that would be explored for consideration. If we're talking about 2 schools, include Townsend, Newbrook, and Jamaica. And recognizing that some study of consolidating Leland grade and Townsend has already been completed, use those results and expand, and that basically explore that. That would require some looking at Newbrook and Jamaica specifically around site, existing buildings, parcel boundaries, so on and so forth, capital needs assessments, and other stuff. And then what they would do is they would set up with, they would meet up with the long-term planning committee to go through that and try to figure out what a new alternative might look like. So they would include in this a preliminary program of room, space, and site needs, kind of like what they did with the one campus model feasibility study. And they would do what would they call a conceptual test fit for building and site plans for all the buildings, and look at preliminary permit, utilities, and building code review. They would do something called an evaluation matrix, and Al and I had talked about this with them, and conceptually the idea is that they would take all the buildings and evaluate them each on a set of criteria in this matrix. Things like ability to expand, capacity, location, playground space, outdoor space, things like that they would use to kind of explore and develop a matrix that would come out of that to evaluate, and then a summary report. They have a list of things that are not included in this scope of work. Structural assessments, analysis of alternative or additional properties locations, water sewer assessments, opinions on project construction costs if there were construction involved, or no school board presentations or no public engagement process or presentations. Again, that was the hope that the long-term committee would be able to do that work once they met with them, and then that would save us some money on the back end. That being said, the cost they've estimated that to be at is $34,900, so almost $25,000 more than what you guys had voted to approve. So that's where we're at with that. We knew the 10 grand was low kind of going in, and I think they did their best to save some money to put some work back on the long-term committee, but that's that's where they're at. So if you guys want to go down that discovery phase and see what thinking about other campuses could lead us to and being creative, then you have to put some more money up on the table. So,
All right.
and again, I can forward this out to you guys as well. It's obviously just their pitch. It's not signed by me yet until I've been told to do so. So.
Any thoughts, folks?
I'm wondering if more of the work, I feel like a lot of this stuff has actually already been done. Things like creating this matrix and whatever. I feel like that's work that we have done, and maybe we haven't put it in a format that they can work easily from. But I feel like there's a lot of work that has been done to this point that sounds a little bit like they're duplicating.
Yeah, I think the difference is the new buildings. I think that's what the expansion of this was. Includes Newbrook and Jamaica as part of the exploration. But I think you're right. I think a lot of the stuff that we did, and particularly the group that met with them after the feasibility study came back, with the administrative team, met with them and some of the board members to kind of like make the logistical, like, can this actually work? You're saying it can or cannot, like, what does it look like? All that work we did, and they were not really as involved with that, and so that did save us some money. I think that's part of what this expectation is. He did tell Al and I that if you were starting this process from scratch, and you were just going into it and you had this open, like, here's this problem we want to look at as a community. We have these 4 buildings and we want to look at whatever in the future, that it would cost, I think it was like $330,000 to do this from beginning to end. So far, I think the first round was 35, maybe you guys put into it? Does that sound right? Something like that?
Somewhere around there.
So you're talking about another 35, you're still talking 20% of the overall cost had you employed them to do it in the first place. So yes, it's still a lot of money, but it's significantly less than if you had engaged with them to take this process from the beginning. Because I think of all the work that you guys and the admin have done. So, but yeah, it's still throwing some money at it for sure, yeah. So.
Exclamation point. Any other thoughts?
The one thing I'll add is, I'm sorry, is that they are, the schedule says they're prepared to begin upon authorization to proceed, so they are ready to go.
Do they have an estimation of how long it will take them?
It doesn't say. No.
Okay.
The last one was, I don't know, a couple months though.
That sounds
From
about right.
beginning, from the authorization to when we sat down and ended up with like something that was doable, it was a couple months.
Yeah.
But that involved some of it was on our end, just scheduling the meeting and trying to get everybody involved.
Yeah, and kind of in thinking about it, if it took them a couple months, then, okay, fantastic. They handed off to us in
Right.
January-ish, right after the holidays, after all the normal chaos. And,
Yeah.
and then we
Budget
can
stuff is over.
make haste, yeah.
Yeah.
Can the board meaningfully reduce the scope with more upfront work? I know you all have done a lot of the sort of building exam work before, but are there buildings that the board or the long-term planning committee can look more closely at and eliminate from consideration, or do more of that, like narrow their scope up front?
Which I think Bob kind of alluded to this. I think we've already done some of that, right? So then coalescing a lot of this data and information that long-term planning committees in the past have already gathered. That's, I mean, he even mentions it in there and in his note, is that been very helpful that a lot of this information is already ready there and available, and they can kind of put it together in a package.
And the other piece that was included in your packet of stuff that went out from Sue to you guys earlier included the new state reports on the buildings, which if you had a chance to look at that, if Greg were here, he would say a little bit about that. Oh, he's here now? He and Lori attended a webinar with the state when those reports came out to hear a little bit more about how those were created and what the intent was. And they can speak to this more detail, but the short version of it is that those costs are about half of what the state actually, or what people actually believe that those costs would be. So the repairs and capital improvements that would need to happen, really you should have that as a multiply by 2. So Other than that, they were some pretty good, there's a lot of information in those reports as well, around useful life and systems, so on and so forth. But again, Greg, if he's here, can speak more intelligently than I can for sure.
Yeah, because those numbers were from what, 2018, 19?
Yeah, the numbers were not great, and he just showed me one example of, like, there was an exterior door in one of the buildings that was listed at like $2,000 or $1,500, and he's like, an interior door is like $1,400, like an exterior is gonna be significantly more, the cost would go up a lot. So.
Yeah, inflation.
Oh, there he is.
Well, as far as the long-term planning goes, I guess I would like to make a motion to approve the additional cost to do the work, because I think we need to do the work. I think it's important.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Leanne. All right. Any further discussion?
And I would just say that the question was mentioned about, could you eliminate anything to narrow this down further? I think was your question. I think you guys could, if you want to. We could go back and you could authorize up to a certain amount if you were to cut out the building of the ones. I mean, they've explored leaving the Grand House already. There's 2 left. If you feel like one of them is not worthy of exploration, then you could cut that out. And I would save them a little bit of money, I'm sure, reduce the cost. But short of doing it, all of them, that's what it would be. So.
I would just like to also preface that, I mean, obviously, I think that anybody who's been a part of this work for as long as we have, if there's any other ways that they come up with that, like, well, geez, if you guys wanted to fill in this matrix for us, or whatever thing it is, that is a way to coalesce things easier for them than like, if they're like paying somebody to like watch old board meetings, that doesn't feel very effective. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm sure they're not, but if there are ways that we can, if things come up, please, encourage them to reach out as quickly as possible.
I think as Argo said, you guys collected so much information over the last couple of years, 5 years, that I don't think they have to watch anything. I think it's all right there and available to them. Plus the new state stuff, there's a lot of information.
Yeah, I agree with Lindsay that it would be nice for them to know that to reach out to particularly the recent LTP committee.
Well, the idea of this is that it would report back to that group, the boards identify, whatever that group is, and then that group would then share results with the board like you guys have been doing. So they're not making any board presentations. We would be as a committee at the end.
Perfect. Yeah, so it sounds like we can reconvene that committee at some point in January. And as you said, Greg should for sure be a part of that.
He's excited, I can tell.
Yeah. Okay, so made a motion in a second and had discussion.
I also would like to ask.
Oh, sorry, Emily. Yes.
I just want to make sure that we do get to see that document. I'd like that sent to us.
I'll send that to you guys right during this meeting.
Okay, great. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, you're set to sign, Bob.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, Greg, you are on, so can we go back to you for the sprinkler system update?
Sure. Yeah. So I have a quote for about 28,000 from Jared Powers to do the wood shop, just to add the wood shop, which is something that which is the part of the agreement we made in 2008 that we didn't even keep up our end of the bargain. So when we were given our extension to sprinkler the whole building, we were supposed to do the wood shop and hadn't done it. So that was something that. So the plan is to do the whole project over 4 or 5 years. So the first year being that we would just get the wood shop done so that it was done. The second year we would put the tanks in, the pump in, and then we would tie in all the existing stuff into that system. Third year A level, fourth year B level, fifth year would be finishing up C and D. And so that was my goal. That's what I've been working with. I've been working with Stevens on a quote to do the design. That came back higher than I was comfortable with. I reached out to Patrick Banks, and And I did meet with Brud and Diane from Stevens about the quote. I was able to get it down about, I think it was about 35,000. Their initial quote just to design it was 170,000. But that was a like from where we're currently at, and they were even doing some project management. And so I was able to commit to doing the project management piece and cut some of that out. At 125, it still feels high. So Patrick Banks actually put me in touch with Fire Tech Sprinklers out of Burlington. They do their own designing and installing, so they can design, install the thing for us. So I'm going to reach out. I'm reaching out to them to also get a quote. But it is coming back to be really expensive. The system is going to need a very large pump. It's going to probably need in-ground tanks. It's going to require a generator. So there's a lot of facets to this that are going to get expensive quickly. Brud, the more he dug into it when they were just trying to create the quote, said he thinks it could be upwards of a $2 million project all in. By the time you add in the pumps, the tanks, the digging, and the generator. So it looks to be a big project. But either way, so Powers Fire Protection is giving us a quote for $28,000 to tie in the wood shop, which I think is important to get done just because it's probably our most flammable room in the building. So that is kind of where we're at with it. I'm doing what I can to try to find another means of a more cost-effective path forward. Not to cut Stevens out, but just to try to save our taxpayers money. I respect and like Brud and a lot. He's been great, but even at 125,000, that seems like an awful lot of money. So that's kind of where we're at.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Sorry for interrupting. I think you're on vacation?
Yeah, it's okay. The show must go on, right?
That's right. We'll appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for Greg? Shall we let him get back to dinner or whatever he's doing?
If he could actually stay through
Or-
the first order on new business, just in case there's questions about the building, that would be good, maybe.
Yeah.
Sorry, Greg.
Anything for you, Bob.
All right, moving on to the NEASC update.
All right, so after break, we're coming back to a full district site visit by the NEASC accreditation folks. That includes visits with the administrators, the steering committee, which is a mixed group of teachers, support staff, and administrators, and a full staff meeting, which will be here but streamed in the other buildings as well, to kind of talk about the process and get that underway. Surveys went out. I think most people who are connected with the schools got a survey, which is sort of like the pre-work, I guess, to start doing the self-assessment stuff, to collect some data. That's been done, I believe, in all the schools. Is that right, Dana?
I think so.
Yeah. So that's sort of the next step there. But we have formed a steering committee. We have two co-chairs, Shelley Bostrom, who's an elementary ed teacher in Newbrook, and Ashley Matson, who's a secondary teacher here, are the two co-chairs of the steering committee. We have, like I said, representation from all the different groups of staff on that. Community members, parents, board members will have an opportunity on the actual visit days later on to be heard and have input in different things, but the steering committee is office staff. So, yeah, we're jumping right in. It's a process. It takes some time, but we're excited.
Speaking of, just for anybody tuning in for the first time, just maybe like a 1-minute brief overview of what the NEASC is.
Yeah, NEASC is the New England Association of Secondary Schools and Colleges. It's an accreditation organization that is in New England. And so typically it's been used at the college level or at the high school level. Leland Gray was on it years ago, was taken off of the accreditation track 2010-ish, maybe. I don't know, some of you guys were on the board maybe then. but we are jumping back into it, not just as a school, but as a whole district, so. Which is new to them too at NEASC, but they've been doing it for a little bit, and there's districts who have already been part of the process, so it's kind of cool. But it was in response to our long-term planning conversations and discussions that came up around improvement. So that's what we're doing.
Here we are. All right, thanks. Any questions? No? All right, moving on to the preschool request.
I'm gonna turn this to Renee and Monica, who I think are on Zoom land.
Yes, hello.
There you go.
So I guess everyone got the one page write-up that me and Monica collaborated on. So yeah, I mean, basically there's kind of a space issue at Townsend, as we know, and when we came up with some options, this seemed like the more equitable option for the Townsend community. Couple additional things like that I didn't put on there was the current like space that the first graders are in. There's no bathroom, so that's a little tricky. But first graders tend to need a bathroom support a little bit more than others. The fire inspection, the fire marshal was just saying that first grade should definitely be on the bottom floor, which it's not. And we thought, yeah, JVS having existing structures, it would be less costly than changing Townsend. And I talked with Greg about that. So I think, yeah, that's the gist of it. And so Monica and I came up with this solution thinking we would ask and see what happens. One of the other solutions, which I kind of feel is going in the opposite direction of what's best for kids, would be just to like reduce our pre-K to 4-year-olds only, which I think would be a sad move, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Monica, is there anything you wanted to add on?
Hi, Renee. Hi, everybody. Let me go ahead and put my video on. So, oh wow. Okay, so yes, so as soon as Renee started talking to me about this, I jumped on the opportunity because, as everyone knows, Jamaica Village School, we used to have a preschool program there. So we have everything in place. Literally, we have the classroom is ready. Also, in regards to the playground area, I did a little bit of research in the manual for the guidance manual, and it states that, you know, the fencing would it's pending the site visit and the evaluation and recommendation. So that may be, you know, yes or no with the fencing, but we literally are ready to accept and would love to have preschoolers back in our school.
Thanks, Monica. Sorry, it's a board discussion at this point, but we'll get it out to the audience.
On this issue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terrific, thanks.
All right, thank you for that presentation and summary. So we kept Greg on, I assume, to discuss any potential.
In case you guys had questions about the building.
Oh, okay.
Or any of them.
Yeah, I guess the question would be anything precluding us structurally with Jamaica from not doing preschool there.
No, there's nothing from a building standpoint. And if you all support this to move forward, I've actually already spoken with Tammy Bates too about meeting to walk through too, just to make sure that we're on the up and up. I mean, anything that we would have to add is, would be nominal, and I'm sure we could do it. As far as things the room may need, we would be able to do just through the operational budget during the summer. So no, Jamaica really is a good spot to add one. The playground, would be the only catch, and so if we can work around that, or if we have to put the fence, then we do the fence. But it seems like a good option to me.
Okay. Well, I'll say for one that I'm a huge fan. When I was at Townsend Elementary before Renee, that we were huge advocates for having 3-year-olds do preschool, and I would hate to see that not continue. So I will pass it off to anybody else on the board who has some thoughts.
I just want to clarify, is this proposal to have a 3 and a 4 classroom in Jamaica and a 3 and a 4 classroom in Townsend, correct?
One classroom of 3 and 4 in each place.
In one classroom in each place, okay.
Correct.
And what is the additional staffing requirements for that? Is there anything? We're just gonna,
I don't think there's any, Monica and Renee's no additional, we would just move the staff from one to the other, right?
Yeah, I mean, currently we have 2 classrooms fully staffed, so there would be a transfer and we'd have to think about how we would do that.
with support staff as well?
Okay.
The only wrinkle that we talked about a little bit when we met was the capacity issue. So if there were more people that wanted access to a particular building than that building could hold, how would you determine who gets in and who doesn't get in? As an example, if you have a capacity for 40 kids and 30 want Townsend and 10 want Jamaica, it's great in Jamaica, but how do you deal with the 30 and the 20 in Townsend? What's that look like? So I think certainly administratively we could develop some procedures to deal with that, whether it's a lottery system or it's a proximity, whatever. We could figure out a way to deal with that. We don't have that solved yet because we wanted to see if this was something you guys are interested in pursuing first. But that would be the only challenge that I can see on the logistics side of things.
Okay, so on the face of it, we could say, yes, we want to go ahead and do this, and then logistically.
But you could ask us to come back with more information if you want first, but that's up to you.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Peter?
What are the projected preschool numbers right now?
Great question. Renee, Monica, do you guys have either of that information?
I do know we've been pretty steady at 25 total since I've been there. So it's been pretty steady with them. Yeah, so combined. So 4-year-old is usually more. There's about 15 each year, 16. And then the 3-year-old room can be anywhere from 10 to 12.
So the capacity issue that I just described might even be moved.
And then, sorry if I'm missing something in here. I just want to confirm, so right now there are 2 pre-K spaces at Townsend, and the first grade is moving one of the classrooms will no longer be available at Townsend, and so therefore...
Well, yeah, it's really a space issue. So I think, is it 400 something square feet? So it's really a classroom that's probably more suited for like intervention or a counselor, that kind of thing. And the past 2 years that I've been there, it's worked out okay because there was 12 last year, which was a big crunch. And then there's only 10 this year. But all of our classes moving forward are going to be more than that, at least 12 up to 16. There's no way we're going to be able to fit 16 in there next year. Getting into the habit of moving teachers' classrooms every year is not great for your culture, but also it means that first grade cohort, which is the smallest right now, would be in that room until they went to Leland and Gray in 6th grade. If we went with that model. So
Thank you. Good explanation. Does that help, Peter?
I believe so.
Imagine having 16 kids in a 20 by 20.
No. But I get that. And there's no way. Oh, yes, please, Greg.
Yeah.
Peter, yeah. So just to give you some context, Peter, when we did some of the long-term planning stuff, right? When we were taking buildings and we would clear them and kind of throw classes in them, right? Lindsay probably remembers this, and Leanne, right? We took the number of like 650 square feet. Any room smaller than 650, we didn't consider a classroom because of the size. And they currently have a classroom that is substantially smaller than it should be. And it is right now it does create a fire code issue where ideally you do not have younger kids up on the second floor, because if they were all trying to push out of there in case of a fire, the older kids would trample the little kids, right? So what this would do is it would allow Renee to then move first grade back downstairs into a classroom that's, I believe, over 1,000 square feet, which, would be a great fit, and allows her to stabilize her building flow.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
And then the space that is opened up does that have an assigned use then right now?
It doesn't yet. I mean, obviously, we're still waiting for this to be approved, but I think what she described is some opportunities for kids to get small group instruction and intervention. Right now, they're using 2 rooms off the library, which are like, one of them was like a utility closet, where kids are meeting in there for intervention, which that space could move upstairs, things like that. They would put kids in small groups in a better environment than in what used to be a storage closet.
Fair. Joy said, and then.
Yeah, so I was like, this seems to me that this is no cost, this is next year, it expands our preschool capacity, and it gives Jamaica more kids in their building. The placement issue can be figured out. This seems to me like it should be a slam dunk, so I'll make the motion to go ahead and put this in play. Let's get it done.
All right. Do I have a second?
I have a question first.
I was going to say, I have
we can do discussion. After we've had plenty of discussion.
Oh, Crystal has a hand.
Crystal, go ahead. Do you have a second?
I had a question, but I will second it, as long as we can have discussion.
Absolutely. So, yeah, always. So we had a second, and go ahead, discussion. Go for it, Crystal. If you want to.
So my question is, Bob said if we get too many people that want to go to Townsend and they do like a lottery system, because I think a lot of kids are from Townsend, where would we be at with transportation? I know we don't generally transport the preschoolers, but I think it would be difficult for parents to transport to Jamaica, but Jamaica is a great campus for the little kids.
Good question. Thanks, Crystal.
Need to take that one?
Sure, go ahead. If you have an answer, Greg, sure.
I was hoping Greg was still on the call.
There's a tough answer to that one. That would be there wouldn't be much we could do. There is currently not a route that goes from Townsend to Jamaica. So, you know what I mean? They drive up, they grab kids there, they bring them there. That's why Townsend starts so early at the elementary level, because those kids that catch a ride to Townsend from that area, from the Jamaica area, do so with the high school, with the older kids. So I don't think that there's anything we can do. I know last year we talked a little bit about not transporting pre-K kids anymore. They're really, we carry some risk in transporting pre-K kids. So I think that, one of the things you could do would just be to say we don't do it, right, as a means of saying it's equitable, right? Like we can't do it just right. I mean, because then you're going to put such a value on getting Townsend, right? You're in the center and you get transportation. That might be something that, to put in as part of the change. And I know that people enjoy having the transportation for the littles. However, we're not driving kids over to Timpson Hill or Susie's Little Peanuts. So, in general, people just have to make it work. I know it's not ideal, but.
Thanks, Greg. Sorry, I think I saw Emily and then Lindsay.
Thank you. So I'd be interested to know what the rules are around transporting 3 and 4 year olds. I thought we weren't allowed to at least transport one of those ages, but Anyway, I'd like to know what that is. And I would also well, I have no problem with moving forward with this, but I think it would be really great if the administration could explore not just options for the placement of children in pre-K in both schools, but it wouldn't take that much to look at what we see coming, and it may not be as big of an issue as we think it could be. I don't think it would take that much to have the administration give us a report at the next meeting about how this could work out. We can't say how people are going to feel about which school they want to have them in, but we can have some parameters in place.
Emily, I'll take the transportation piece. So the rule is that a kid under the age of 5 should not be on a bus unless they're in a seat that is part of a factory installed restraint system. West River has chosen to create a document that basically allows parents to waive their rights, to say that they understand this and they still want their kid to ride the bus. I don't believe that would hold up. Dover doesn't transport pre-K kids on buses. Marlboro doesn't. I know that the Wyndham Southeast folks do not. But this was just an issue last year, and so we came up with a waiver form, and that's kind of where it ended.
Greg, how did that come upon us as an issue? How did that waiver option be? How was that crafted? Who was?
Was it approved?
There was a waiver that had been in place. Last year, I went to Bill and said, "Hey, I can't find anything that says kids should be on pre-K buses and other folks don't do it." His initial response was, "Well, yeah, no, when I was at Dover, we never did." I said, "I know, but we are here." And Todd had reached out to me from West River and said, "Hey, I don't think these kids are supposed to be on my bus." But of course, he didn't want to just kick them off. He wants to do right by his community. And so we drafted up this and Bill approved it, and we put it out to families to sign off on.
Okay, that's great.
How many little kids have been riding our buses?
How many preschoolers you mean?
Yeah, how many of this cohort, the under 5?
We have very few, actually. We have, let's see, 4 out of the 25 that ride the bus. Most of them are pick up and drop off with parents.
Does that include after school as well?
We don't have after school pre-K program because we lost our staffing last year, and
I mean the afternoon bus run?
Oh, yes. Yep.
Same 4 or whatever,
Yep.
same numbers. Okay.
Yep.
So I just was hoping to get some clarification, mostly for the record, about why, if we're looking at adding preschool, there has been no discussion of preschool at Newbrook, because there's a lot of families that currently have preschoolers that are traveling to Townsend. And so I would just love that conversation to be had so that.
Yeah, I can tell you the short answer on that is that Jamaica had a room that was already set up that way with low counters and sinks and a bathroom inside. They already had the playground equipment, and Newbrook has neither. And Jamaica has space and Newbrook doesn't have space. So it was kind of like a logical. Yeah, well, I think politically too, I think the challenge at Newbrook is that there's privates nearby. And in Jamaica, there maybe is fewer of them. And so putting something in Newbrook could create a competitive nature, perhaps, that maybe as a community we chose not to do. I don't know. Predates my time as superintendent. So.
You would be correct, Bob. There's been pushback previously on that.
So that was why it was sort of like going in the other direction.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But the building constraints are part of it as well, for sure. Yeah.
Thanks. I just want to make sure we have that officially.
Yes.
Just want me to say it out loud.
That's what I want.
Thank you, Lindsay. All right, Peter.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I just want to confirm that there would be no additional cost minus the fencing that needs to go up, and that would be the only additional cost that is seen, at least right now.
Monica?
Yes, hi. So yes, I can say, yes, that is correct. And I'm actually looking at the guidance manual right now, and it says a fence is required when hazards are near the outside play area, such as water, animals, trains, or traffic. And where our playground is located, it is not located near any of those things. So I would be really surprised if we would need to have a fence at all, but just in case, the fence it looks like would be the only cost.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Great. Clearly, there's some folks in the audience here who would like to speak to this, so I just want to make sure that everybody on the board has said everything that they want to say. Anybody else have anything that they would like to say about this on the board? Okay. Seeing none, I will throw it to our audience members. I'm guessing that you want to speak about it. We'll give you 2 minutes each.
Okay.
And
Sure. Hi, my name's Eric Schaefer. I live in Jamaica. Thanks for letting me attend. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old daughter. Just so I can get clear, because I think it's like we already got the yes. Is the motion been presented and seconded to have a pre-K?
correct.
Just not voted on yet.
Okay, and so I'm gleaning that there's a sense that it's a yes from what I'm getting.
We'll get there.
Okay, so do I understand correctly that teachers from Townsend grade 3 and 4 would move over there? Or would we have to find teachers?
No, there's 2 classrooms at Townsend, basically you would take the staff from one of them and move it to Jamaica.
To do a 3 and a 4-year-old room together?
Correct, yep. Be a combined 3-4 room.
Great, and so a staff from Townsend would come over?
Yeah, I think a teacher and a support staff.
Okay, awesome. I'm just here to say please, and we'd be very grateful. And I have a little 2 and 4-year-old daughters, and they weren't able to go because, as you guys have already gone over, there's a great space there, and we'd be super grateful. And I represent a small constituency of other parents that I know can be here that would love to bring their kids. So we'd be super grateful if you guys could see a way to bring it.
Okay,
That's my 2 minutes.
appreciate it.
And there might have been the other 2, at least 2 others that emailed us as well that were shared, I think at least with you and me, similarly asking for yes as well.
And just so, if you did vote yes, are we done then? It's going to happen next September?
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no other hoops to jump through.
And the administration will take care of the logistics.
So you guys
So they have to
decide
get,
tonight.
they have to get, I think and Monica was just talking about the manual. Monica, is there a site approval process that you have to go through with the AOE?
Yes, and as soon as, if we get a yes on this, then I'll jump right on it.
So there is a different one hoop to do that,
Okay,
but I mean, I think
and you
based
guys
on the
gonna
fact
vote
that.
right after we're done talking? No, I'm not.
No,
I just don't know how logistics go, yeah.
That is the order of procedure.
Okay,
yes.
great.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And did you want to speak or?
No, she's here for a presentation.
Oh.
Farm school presentation, yeah.
I am so sorry. Thank you. Chrissy, I see your hand up. You have 2 minutes.
Hi, thank you. Chrissy Haskins. I am a Jamaica resident and a parent of a JVS student. I'm also a member of the JVS Principal Advisory Committee. As you guys have discussed tonight, we did have a pre-K program in Jamaica until the merger. An elimination of the pre-K program has had a serious negative impact on JVS and our town, and little to no impact on any other town in our district that I know of. For those that do not know, Jamaica is the only town covered by our elementary schools that does not have any pre-K programs. Townsend has public pre-K at the elementary school. Newfane and Brookline both have private options, and Jamaica has no pre-K in town, public or private. Since the closure of Jamaica's public pre-K, our students have had to go to Townsend or to private pre-K in another town. This has left Jamaica families in an inequitable position compared to the rest of our district. In regard to the transportation question, I just want to note that Jamaica families have been dealing with that transportation issue for years now, with some Jamaica families not being able to send their children to pre-K because of transportation issues. It's a bit disappointing that it didn't get discussed by the board until it affected other students, but I'm very happy to hear that it's being discussed now. And also, I was just heard tonight that there is or was consideration of potentially reducing pre-K to only 4-year-olds, and I would really not support that. Early education is so important to our children, and with the lack of private facilities in our area, this would be detrimental to our students. Another impact is for Jamaica, particularly for the closing of our pre-K, is that once students were sent to Townsend for pre-K, they would rarely move back to Jamaica, which has been a factor in the drastically reduced enrollment levels at JVS. From my own personal experience with JVS, I was initially torn on where to send my child to elementary school, as I've watched the board consider closing JVS for years, almost every year since the merger. And I didn't want to send him to a school that could be closed the following year. Ultimately, I did decide to send him there, and I am thrilled with this decision. JVS is arguably the best physical location for an elementary school in our entire district, with close proximity to the state park and Jamaica Village. The students have the opportunity to safely leave campus with their teachers and explore the community and nature, as well as the unique opportunity for the OWLS program. And as a separate side note, I encourage the board to keep all of this in mind as you continue to think of long-term planning. The return of pre-K to JVS would better serve Jamaica families and possibly other families in our community by providing a local option for pre-K and building enrollment numbers with Jamaica students moving from pre-K to elementary school within a single building. Again, we're the only community in the district without a local pre-K option, which puts us in a very inequitable position. And what better location for pre-K students to grow and learn than the beautiful JVS campus? I strongly encourage the board to take all steps necessary to allow JVS to relicense for pre-K and open the program for the 24-25 school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Chrissy. Appreciate it. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, we have had discussion, we've had full discussion from the board. We've had some input from.
Can I just say one more thing? Can I ask one more thing?
Sure.
Peter wants to.
Briefly.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, but I just really want to ask this because Chrissy just made me think of it. Is there any plans or thoughts about creating an environment, or maybe we already do this more, but for outdoor education, especially for pre-K? And the reason I ask this is because you probably all read about how folks are finding access to outdoor education has been very helpful for our children's mental health. And so I just want to encourage us to consider that as we're considering different locations for not just pre-K, but for all of our, all of our children in every grade to encourage outdoor education. Thanks.
Great plan, Lynn. Thank you. Peter?
Small clarification. I think you just accidentally misspoke the first time. You said 3rd and 4th grade.
Oh, I'm sorry.
3rd and 4-year-olds.
Correct.
A pre-K staff will be heading over, not 3rd or 4th grade teacher.
Correct. Yep.
That's it.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Okay, anything else? If not, we're going to go to the vote. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Bye, Greg. Thank you.
All right.
We're going for apple pie. See you later.
Don't forget the ice cream.
Cheddar cheese.
All right, after school and summer camp presentation. Apologies, we're a little behind schedule here.
That's all right. So if you guys have not met Jamie Dansford. Jamie is new to us this year as our after-school coordinator. And so he is going to be sharing with you guys a presentation about after school and summer in the West River District.
There we go. Okay, so after school summer. So first off, thank you all for having me here this evening. I really appreciate you inviting me in and welcoming me to your community. It's been a busy ride already. So where we've started, I officially, hit the ground running August 23rd. So in that short time, we built the program up from scratch, created websites, created a handbook, created new processes for everything, hired site coordinators, activity leaders, high school staff, and of course trained everyone in that process. And we officially started our programming on October 1st. We've been going for a little more than a month now, and we're already planning for our second session. And actually our registration's closed today for our second session. We've also been involved very much in future planning for our program. And where we talk about with future planning, where we're going, we're looking at increased education for our staff and training for them, which I think is very important to increase the enrichment of our programs for our students. We're talking about parent nights and inviting parents in to see what we're offering and what we have their children doing every day. We're looking at solution for the half-day problems. We know that's been a big issue, so we're looking at a couple different ways to solve that problem. Program growth. Already I can tell you between our fall session and winter session, we've increased 9% in students that are involved. Create quality summer programming. We had pre-registrations and we had 93 students pre-register for our summer program already. Let's see, we're exploring different funding opportunities and what that would look like to help cut down costs. Building relationships with our community members, getting not only ourselves out there, but getting myself out there as well to meet the different community members, businesses, and everyone who can support our program. And also working with high schools, project-based learning. I'm in contact with the coordinator of that, and I hope to be teaching a PBL this spring that will directly feed. It'll provide students with an opportunity how to work with youth-based programs, anyone who's interested, and also get students trained who want to work in our programs both summer and after school. Parent feedback. I've been, heavily involved in getting parent feedback as well through all this. Overall, I put out a mid-session survey, and this is how parents rated our program. A lot, mostly, 8s and above. We had a couple that are, 5, 6, and 7s, but on the most part, I think, things have started off really well and it's been really successful. Feedback also as well. My child likes that they don't have to choose the same program each week. We changed things around this year where they don't sign up for activity for the whole time, but they're offered activities each day, and they get to choose each day what they would like to do, and that's been very successful. Let's see, staff. Site staff activities are safe and reliable after school care. We've really put a focus on making our sites safe, and different policies have been put in place to ensure that. Some have, parents have had to come around to it, but in the end, they've really appreciated the safety and the quality program that we're providing for their children. My child comes home from laughter, buzzing with energy, excited to tell us what she did there. So students are extremely happy with what's going on. They're engaged and they're having a lot of fun. I can tell you every time I visit a site, which is every day, the kids are involved, they're participating, they're having a lot of fun. Parent feedback. So just to give you a look at what, they're looking for, mostly 2/3 of parents, are really excited that their kids are engaged. They're there for enrichment, social engagement, physical activities. About 1/3 is there for supervision. When I got this back, I had the thought, I really wish I asked a second question, a follow-up question to that that, okay, even if your kid is here for supervision, do you appreciate that they are engaged and they have the opportunity to have these activities? Because my feeling is a lot of them would answer yes. Importance to the community, very highly rated. Parents, see the need for this after school programming, and they want it. We see that with everything that's happening. Student feedback. So you think it's hard to get feedback from parents? It's even harder to get it from kindergartners. So while we do have some low scores here, and actually that lowest score, I happened to be at that site when we were doing these surveys, and I asked the student, I said, I'm not going to change your answer because we don't do that. I said, but why did you rate it 2? And they said, well, I come here every day and I do my homework, and that's not very fun. So I think you have to take these answers with a little bit of a grain of salt. But for the most part, like I said, the proof is on their face. When you go and you see all these kids active and involved, you can tell that these programs are really successful. Let's see, student feedback, activities they enjoy: arts and crafts, biking, outdoor games, building forts, painting, making jewelry, playing chess. Lots of great activities are happening each day in our programs. Students' view on staff. Do the adult staff help you? About 98% feel that they're getting help by their adult staff members. This next one, again, with a grain of salt. Do the high school staff help you? 10% said no, but my feeling is that 10% of students most of the time just go to their adult staff, so they don't go to the high school staff. So that's the answer why there's a no for the high school students. But again, these are all numbers that I take in and look at, and I'm going to use for future training with our high school staff and adult staff as well. What do we offer? So our programs, after school, 175 days of programming we're looking at for next year. We were a little late to start this year because I just came in, but the plan is next year we're going to start probably the second week of school starts. So 175 days of programming we'll be running. 2 to 2.5 hours a day, depending on the site that they're at. Choice of activities daily. They get a snack. We get valued parent feedback and support. Valued student participation and planning. Just today, one of our activity leaders were working with kids planning on what they would like to do next session and got their feedback. And high school employment. I think that's been, a huge hit, being able to have high schoolers come and work in our programs. Not only do they just show up, but I do trainings with them, and actually I give them homework as well to do too, to be better prepared to work with students. Summertime, we are looking at 20 days of programming, where in those 20 days, there'll be 7 hours a day, 8 engaging and fun trips in those 20 days we have planned right now. Daily transportation to and from the program. Breakfast and lunch will be provided. Tutoring availability for students, weekly swimming, mini camps on our on-site days, summer reading we have planned as well, and also again, high school employment. Proposed costs for fiscal year 25. I know this is what everyone's been waiting for. So our summer program, we're planning for grades 1st through 8th grade. That's the projected cost. After school programs run K through 8th grade, and that's the projected cost. Totaling a little over $443,000. Currently, this district already budgets $94,000. We are estimated offsetting the revenue of getting offsetted revenue of $70,000 through parent contributions, donations, grants. That's our estimated cost, revenue we hope to get. So the amount we're additionally asking for from the district is about $280,000. And just to put some of that in perspective, right? So that's for 4 sites, 4 after-school sites and 1 summer site. Looking at that total cost for 195 days, that's the after-school days and the summer days, it's about a little over $2,000 a day. Cost per student, we looked at the registrations for the fall and what's currently in our elementary programs and what's how many students are served here, and it's around 100 students. So looking at 100 students, it's about $22, about $23 a day per student. Cost per hour, we run about 577 hours, so it's around $7.68 per hour. Cost per student per hour is about $7.68, just to put it in perspective. And given a 7-hour school day with the number of hours we run, we're providing enrichment activities. If students participate all 5 days and all 20 days during the summer, they get an additional 82.5 days of enrichment during the year. So I think that's a lot to be said. Why did we fund it ourselves? We're guaranteeing programming for students for after school and summer. Don't have to worry about if there's ever going to be money there. Local districts of River Valley and Marlboro already fund their programs 100%. So we'd be falling in line right with them and showing support for these programs as well. We currently don't have any community center here in our areas. So nothing like a Boys and Girls Club, a Y, rec program to really provide these opportunities for our students. Right now, our program is where they get all their enrichment opportunities. We're ensuring that our program will be sustainable and thrive. Provides time to create a thriving, enriching program. And what I mean by time, it provides time for myself and my staff to be creating enriching program for our students and always looking for what's next and what more we can do. And our time isn't, taken up by constantly finding ways to fund these programs. And ultimately, it's our end goal. Like whatever, a lot of times with grants and stuff you apply for, you're looking, they always ask, what's your end goal, like to be sustainable? Well, if you guys decide to do that today, we would have met that end goal. We're just fast forwarding it, a couple of years earlier. We're saying, yes, we're meeting our end goal. We're sustainable. We're putting in our full support behind these programs. And that's all I have for you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Any thoughts or questions? Go ahead, Peter.
One thing that I remember actually from talking to a select board when I was a student here, is that with the OPA funds, they were looking for ways to better their communities, and I know at least in both Townsend and Newfane, community center was brought up. Have you talked to the select boards for possible assistance in funding, or?
That's some great ideas, and unfortunately I just have not had that time yet. I mean, just coming on the end of August, getting the programs up and running, I have not had time to explore lots of additional funding. I've done some preliminary work in looking at some grants and what's possible, what's out there. Liz and I have been talking about different grants that we're currently going to be looking at and applying for in the very near future. That's not one I have thought of to go to, but I'll definitely keep that in mind and, see what we can do and what we can get from the select board.
Yeah, I would highly suggest talking to the different select boards.
Absolutely, thank you.
And I think that brings up a good point. You've been here for what, 6 weeks, 8 weeks?
Yeah, something like that.
Right, and you've hit the ground running. So this is what you see as the immediate need, and as we're budgeting now, that's what we need.
Yeah.
Not to say that you are not going to be pursuing. grants
Exactly,
and
you know,
funding.
all this on, and I forgot to mention that too. We are gonna continue to look for additional funding and everything, but at least with the board saying, yes, we will fund you, then we have that, we're ensuring that our programs are going to run. And whatever funding we get is gonna be icing on the cake.
And be able to kick some money into a reserve.
Yeah.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yep, Lindsay
Sure.
and then Crystal.
So when we originally said that we were going to like fund our after-school programming ourselves instead of doing the 21C funding, I know we had that discussion and came up with a number and said, and now it's like 3 times that number. It's like this amount is significantly higher, right? Which I understand that there's a lot going on behind that, but I'm just curious as to the vastness of that discrepancy, and are we now offering something that's significantly more? Did we just not understand the full?
I guess I don't know what the number was originally, but one of the things that he did mention is that this is an everyday thing, whereas in the past there was gaps in between sessions. So that's definitely part of that for sure. And I think the other piece is, and I don't know if Lori's still on here as well, she might be able to answer this part, but there was also money budgeted in the past for the middle school camp, which is now rolled into this. So I don't know if that money is included in the already funded by portion that he described in his presentation, or whether Lori has that in a different bucket. That I don't know, but that was run sort of separately, and now it's going to be sort of rolled into one with efficiencies around being on one site.
Yeah. So this is the cost for everything K through 8, after school all year, summer 1st through 8th. This is what our program is going to cost, you know, and this accounts for staffing and you know, all the extra money that goes into staffing, having to pay like retirement and health plans and all that, because all that adds up really quickly. I think that the 90,000 you guys had already put in is a great start, but that doesn't come anywhere near what the program actually costs. This, I can tell you, working with Lori, is like what our program costs to run summer and after school all year.
Okay, thanks. I saw Crystal and then
Lori's there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Crystal and then Lori. Go ahead, Crystal. Crystal.
So you said in the summer there would be one site. Is that correct?
Yep. So we're moving towards this one site model. It saves us a lot of money in a lot of different ways where we can combine staffing and collaborate, and it also provides us with a lot more opportunities for mentorship between the older students and the younger students. You know, it really consolidates, you know, keeping all the food at one place, all the transportation coming to one place. There's a lot of benefits and savings in doing it in one site.
And have you guys picked that site?
Yeah, we're going to do it here at Leland and Gray.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Crystal. Lori?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so just to clarify, the board hasn't really committed yet to paying for this locally. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, and that I think the last time that I spoke to you about this, I gave you a document that said it was the WRED K through 5 summer and after school budgetary challenge for beyond fiscal year 24. and it laid out the history and the budget, and all of that. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that you requested more information, which is what Jamie's been putting together over the last, how many weeks? 6 weeks, to be able to present this to you for the fiscal year 25 budget.
Okay, thanks, Soy. Go ahead, Peter. Oh, and Crystal, is that a new hand or an old hand?
Old, sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead, Peter.
So your projected, I'm sorry if you said
No.
this. So your projected cost for next year is, that is an after-school day every single school day,
Just about, yes.
Just about, yeah, this including some of the weird days?
Yep.
Such as half days? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, I personally, I think that it's important for us to get up and running as soon as we can from when school starts. We want to give that buffer week for students to get acclimated into school, and then before we throw in after school right on top of that. So, but besides that, running, right through till the end of school is what the goal is. And then 20 days in the summer. So that way we run essentially the month of July. So that way students have a break between school when the summer program starts. They have 20 solid days in July of enriching programming, and then they have a little break between when summer ends and school starts again. So, yeah.
And you have about 100 families in the program or 100 students across the program now. You have nearly 100 signed up for the summer.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting, yeah.
The broad coverage is always fantastic for families. I encourage that half days as really.
Yeah, we are really we're exploring lots of different avenues and what we can do. So it's a little tricky with staff. A lot of our staff works in the schools as well, so they have to attend those trainings. So that's the little tricky part, but we're exploring different opportunities of how we can make that work in the future. I hope to have a solution for next year.
Great. Lindsay.
I guess I'm seeing that it says possible action on here, and I would definitely want to maybe include that in the budget conversation instead of trying to include it in its own conversation, because it's clearly very, very dependent on everything else.
Yeah.
I think your action item would be to ask Lori to put it into the budget.
I see.
And then you could go from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we see 21C decision separated, or is that just?
Well, I mean, it's sort of
subpart?
I don't know, do you want to say a little bit about the 21C, only because that was one piece you guys had in that document that Lori referenced. There was a choice that you could either just take it on locally, or you could still pursue the 21C as well. You've done some looking into that.
Yeah, so 21C, my suggestion would be to stay away from the 21C. Yes, it does provide some substantial funding for programs, but I would say there's equally substantial hoops to jump through. Where Vermonters, I think we're very accustomed to having local control. We would lose that local control if we went with 21C. We wouldn't be able to customize our programs for our community. We would have to follow a lot of the guidelines that 21C puts in place. When there was 21C, from talking to a lot of people here, program numbers actually went down because we lost a lot of that customization. So we lost students being involved in the programming. Now that we don't have 21C this year, we see our numbers climbing, back up. And already we're climbing from our fall session. Like I said, we've already increased 9% over what we saw during the fall. Yeah.
Can I get an example of that customization? I guess I don't really understand exactly.
So outreach that I'm able to do with parents and talk to them about, timing, We talked about, so a perfect example is Newbrook in Jamaica. They were ending at 5:30 this next session, based on parent feedback, staff feedback, and students. We're actually going to end at 5 this next session due to it being a really long day for the students. With the time change and everything, it's very difficult. The students, being there so late and so dark. 21C, we wouldn't necessarily have that freedom to make changes like that in our programming during the year.
They
And even
dictate
the
length
year,
of the day, the length of the summer programming. Some of it have to be 6 weeks instead of 4, I believe.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things like that that they would dictate as part of receiving the money.
Yeah.
But even like you said, the state folks of after school within Vermont are kind of like poo-pooing the 21C as a concept as well, the federal side of it, because of all the limitations that he's describing.
Yeah. I'll take, let me finish through this and then absolutely, because I just have lots of notes on it. Just to give you an idea, speaking with Liz, our grants person down the central office, she does an amazing job. She told me it took her 150 hours just for the application for 21C. And even then, we're not guaranteed to get this grant, putting in all that work. And that doesn't even count the 3 yearly reports that you have to do and the site visits that happen and all of that. This is time that I feel would be better spent looking at how we can create better programming for our students, make more enriching programming, educating our staff, working with our staff to be the very best that they could be for our students, and create a thriving program. Because of what 21C did, districts like River Valley and Marlboro have moved away from 21C and have chosen to fund their programs on their own. So,
Okay. Thanks,
yeah.
Jimmy. All right. We do have a couple more questions.
Absolutely.
All right, let's take a couple more folks and then kind of move on. We do have another presenter. Crystal and then Lori.
So, my kids use the program. Thank you. It is great. My question is, my concern is that we go that we're going to fund this program that, it won't last. Is it possible to charge parents that can afford it so that, maybe we end up with some revenue of some sort?
Can I ask you why you think that the program wouldn't last?
I'd just be afraid with the cost that our voters may not support it. So I'm just wondering if we can get parents who can afford it.
We can pay for. So we can, and that's part of the estimated revenue that Lori and I worked on. That 70 grand was part of what we could get from parent contributions. So we already accounted for that.
Okay, good question. And given that you've only been doing this for whatever, 8-10 weeks,
Yeah.
Maybe as we go through the budget process, you'll have more information to share about
Sure.
potential offsetting revenues, I would imagine. Lori probably has some comment about that as well.
Yes, so that is exactly what I'm looking for from Bob, that Bob said to whether to put this into the budget to see how it impacts the budget. I can tell you that if it were dropped into fiscal year 24's budget, it would have been about 4 cents on the tax rate for full day programming and all of that. So just to give you some, perspective on that. I will also say that, and I hate to, batter 21C program, but something new that has just come through, because 21C is federally funded. I don't know if you're aware, but most of all of our federal funds, we have to provide equitable services for area programs. So now 21C is also falling under that. So if we were to, for example, receive $200,000 from 21C, we would have to reach out to all the area private summer camps and those types of things, and perhaps give them some of the money for equitable share. And so that is also part of it. We have to do that for Title I. We have to do that for our ARP ESSER, and we've done it. So it is, we hadn't had to ever do that with 21C, but that has just come into play for 21C as well. So just wanted to throw that out there. You don't get the full amount. And ARP ESSER is going away. Currently right now, this program is funded, with the exception of the summer program, was all funded by grants. And it certainly does not mean that we will not be looking for grants to offset some costs here, but.
Thanks, Lori.
That's all.
Very helpful. Okay. Do we need to hear anything else to have Bob, have Lori put that into the budget? For review.
I don't, because it's, voting on the budget, I don't know that you need to, but you could, if you're just directing us to put it in and see what happens, I think we can certainly do that. And we can talk more about it as you see the bigger picture of the budget.
Yeah. Okay. Does everybody agree for consideration? Sure. All right. Okay. Very good. Apologies. Moving on to our farm to school presentation. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah,
for sure. Feel free to hang out and watch. It's always fun.
Oh yeah. Well, I thought I would. Oh sure, yeah. You want to hit that bottom one? Yeah.
The next one. Go on this side. Good evening. My name is Katie Morrison, and I work as a farmer school coach with Food Connect. So I work with most of the schools in the district with their farmer school teams, supporting their farmer school programming. And I'll try to keep my comments brief because I know you guys have other stuff to talk about. So for those of you who aren't familiar, I just want to briefly, but before we get to that, I just want to share that my main goal tonight is to just share highlights of the farm to school program throughout the district, and then also just briefly share like hopes for the future of the programs at schools. So for those of you who aren't familiar, farm to school is a program that aims to connect kids like with where their food comes from, and teach them about food systems, and also to instill healthy eating habits in kids. Especially because these days kids get a lot of what they eat from schools. And the framework that we use, we work with other organizations in the state. They have this 3C framework. So the idea is that kids are getting farm to school programming in cafeteria, but also in the classroom and communities. And that can be through things like field trips, eating local food in the cafeteria, harvest dinners, cooking, and taste tests. So there's like really a variety of ways that kids can connect to the food systems and learn about where their food is coming from and being exposed to healthy foods. And there's a lot of benefits to farm to school programming. It provides a lot of opportunities for hands-on learning, which is especially beneficial for kids who are for non-traditional learners who might, like experiential learning or more active. So it's a great way to get those types of kids engaged. It also encourages healthy eating habits. Kids are more likely to eat veggies if they're exposed to them more often, and they're more likely to eat them if they're growing them themselves. So those are just ways to expose, vegetables, fruits and vegetables to kids. And it also can be really empowering, when a kid is harvesting vegetables that they grew from a seed themselves, or cooking food for their classmates. Those types of opportunities are just really empowering for kids. And then there's a lot of opportunities to connect with the community, like through harvest dinners, other events, and also partnerships with local organizations, farms, businesses. So it's a great way to connect with the community as well. So now I'm just going to talk about what's happening at the schools that I've been working with, because there's a lot of exciting things happening. Here at Leland and Gray, the program, farm to school program is pretty young, but it has the farm to school team is pretty energetic and ambitious. So they've been doing a lot. They attended the North New England Farm to School Institute this past spring. They've been getting a lot of grants. Jake's been doing a lot of work there. They received a whole kids grant, which will help fund a small greenhouse. Another grant that's allowing the school to serve Miller Farm or local organic milk, which is exciting. Students last spring attended a food and sustainability summit, which was run by other high schoolers in the state. The summer meals program has been really successful, and a new garden was built here, which you can see here planting in that first picture. They were harvesting veggies out of it. And also the Journey Away program is tightly connected to the Farm to School program, and with that semester program, they're going to be studying food systems in Vermont, but also, traveling to the Gulf states, Vietnam and France, which provides a great opportunity for kids to, increase their exposure to other cultures, but then also to bring back that learning here. And there's a real big opportunity, like once they've done that program, to then be interested and connected with the farm to school program and learning more about cooking and nutrition and agriculture in this area, which is exciting. And then, so in Townsend, which is also a fairly new program, but it's been growing, which is exciting. They have a farm to school coordinator, Amy Duffy, who provides farm to school programming to all the students on a regular basis. They've recently got a grant, which has allowed them to install raised beds, gardens, to establish a school garden there. They have this grow tower that they also were able to install to allow, this kind of growing year round. And then they've done other educational programming, with the Vermont Garden Network. And then Newbrook, which is a more established program. Amy also is working there to provide farm to school programming to all students, including monthly taste tests. They do a farm and field day in the spring, and then a harvest dinner, which is happening at the end of this week, which are both great community, especially the harvest dinner. It's a great community event, connecting with families. And this picture shows an example, a collaboration with the art teacher, where they were dyeing tea towels with marigolds from the school gardens. So there's a lot of opportunity for connections with, to connect the curriculum, the different subject matters. And Sarah was going to kind of talk a little bit about what she sees as the value of farm to school at Newbrook. She's not feeling well, but I think Scotty is going to pipe in with his report about, what he sees as there's a real value for this sort of programming. And just looking to the future, it's pretty cool because there's, and before we talk about the future, Jamaica isn't featured here, but in doing this presentation, it made me realize that we have not been working with them specifically, and I've connected with them, and they are also interested in developing their farm to school programming. So even though it's not highlighted here, there's communications in the work to develop what's happening there as well. And in general, for the future, there's a sense of wanting to create a program that will connect the farm to school experiences from elementary through to the middle and high school level, so that it's kind of in middle school and high school, they're building off experiences they had as elementary students. And so we're hoping to, kind of coordinate that across the school, across the district level. And of course, there's hopes to further grow the programs at schools like Townsend, and Leland and Gray is kind of just getting started. So to have a more robust program throughout, and Jamaica, so have a more robust program throughout the district. So that's it. I don't know if we have time for questions, but you're also you're welcome to contact me. My email is katie.morrison@foodconnects.org. So yeah, thanks for taking time to listen. Thanks.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks. Appreciate it. And we also just had a project-based learning group from Leland and Gray go down to Food Connect.
Oh yeah, I was part of
last
that
week.
tour. So that things like that are just a great trying to connect farm to school to PBL and after school clubs. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Any questions for Katie? All right.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming. Okay. Yes, moving on to principal reports and now, I was going to say in hopes of keeping on time, in hopes of if we could limit each of them to maybe 2 minutes, that would be fantastic. And let's see, I'm looking out there. I see Scotty right away. Scotty, want to start with you?
I just want to say thank you to Katie Morrison from Food Connects and Amy Duffy, our farm to school coordinator. We've got a big week this week, right before Thanksgiving break at Newbrook. And so, we have Spirit Week and we have our all school assembly this Thursday, and we have an all school recess the kids earned on Friday morning for 15 minutes additional recess. But what I'm really excited about is the Harvest Dinner and Student Art Show, which is a collaboration between Suzanne Paw, our art teacher, and all of our classroom teachers and our farm to school team, who really make a incredible blast for all the families. We all come together and eat. Everybody, there's going to be probably 10 or 15 different pots of soup there that everyone can try. Mine is called the Principal Soup, and it's especially delicious. I can tell you that. I'm excited. This past month, we've been working a lot on our crisis response team, and I want to thank Priscilla Halby and Katie Sargent, our school nurse, Carrie Toll, our school counselor, and Pat Mace, our custodian. They also are comprising our behavior threat assessment team. We've all been trained to assess threats prior to becoming a problem, and I really am very appreciative for all this training. I think it really goes right in line with our with the amount of time we spend on school safety. Again, I would love it if any or all of the board members would come to our farm to school celebration and our harvest dinner and art show this Thursday night. It's from 6 to 7:30. You do not have to stay and clean up. Just come and eat, and we'd love to have you. Again, I want to thank Katie for her time tonight. I really was hoping that she would present to you guys to let you know of her excellent work.
Thank you, Scotty. Let's see. I think I see Monica.
Hi again, thank you. So at Jamaica Village School, we've been working just like Scotty with our threat assessment training, and I completed the online training, and we've been doing drills at least once a month. We had our first school club meeting and principal action committee meeting, which went very well. The 802 Smiles group came to visit us, the dentist, and almost every student had dental cleanings happen. So that was a very exciting day at our school. We went on a field trip to the North Meadow Farm, and we had our first visit from Jamie Maloof, part of our OWLS program, in which we collected acorns and learned about building a shelter. And this, as a matter of fact, today Jamie was back and we used the acorns that we collected and harvested and prepared them, and we made acorn pancakes over an open fire. So it was a really fun afternoon for all of us. And I am also looking forward to working with Katie and her farm to school program. So we do have a garden that's in place that we've been nibbling off the tomatoes. They're all gone right now, but we'd be happy to have her on our campus to show us how to improve our garden and to grow more food for all of us. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Monica. Please share your acorn pancake recipe. I want to hear about that, yeah.
Sure, with maple syrup also. Everything
Yeah.
goes good with maple
And yeah,
syrup.
that's right.
Get a palate, make them palatable.
All right, and Renee, if you're still out there.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
there you
let's see. Yeah, my house is very dark. Sorry, I'm not trying to hide. October 27th, we hosted our harvest lunch at Townsend, and we had a really great turnout. There was like 50 adults, parents, caregivers that attended, plus on top of the staff and students. So we had a packed house. We were able to present our PBIS awards while they were there, which was nice because that's not always the case because, during the school day, it's hard for people to get there. We just recently went to the Montshire for a K-5 field trip that was funded through the Stratton Foundation grant that we wrote last year. Students were able to do some engineering workshops, which were really fun. We are wrapping up our winter sports signups, and we have some new options for students, which is great. We have gymnastics and rock climbing this year on top of the ice skating and skiing. And today we celebrated World Kindness Day, where classes tracked and graphed their kind words and actions throughout the day. And then tomorrow morning I will announce the winner and the incentive that they earned, which I still have to decide what that will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Dan?
Sure. I just want to highlight a couple details off the sheet that was submitted to you. First of all, in addition to all the student events that were shared prior, the addition of the Rebel Rooster that's out right now it's well done, and the students are proud of it. So if you haven't seen it around town, I would ask for you to find it and check it out. The students did good work. I'll be upfront with you and tell you that I do encourage a little bit of the angst and the questioning that the students want to pursue. Go ahead, ask questions, please. So if you see something like, oh, that's a little edgy, yep, I'm kind of stirring the pot with it, so I'm okay with it. And then there was also at some point an email asking about an update on climate and conduct in the building. I want to stay at like bird's eye level. However, the high school really is doing well and maintaining a fairly stable climate. Really the target behaviors that we're working on, timeliness to advisory in the morning, and focusing on academics. Middle school, always an interesting time in people's lives. That's
a fair way to put it.
Well, and you know what, developmentally, things are expected. Students are developing at different rates and at different times, and friendships are eroding, and that causes pain, and it's hard times, and young people don't always have the training or know how to deal with that. Many of us didn't either. And so helping to guide students through that time is the work that we do. So that being said, verbal treatment of others is something that we're working on. We have had our cohorts shift, and so whenever there's a change in the groupings, you can see different dynamics. Asking teachers for feedback, their words, classroom conduct is pretty good. Hallway conduct needs improvement. Again, we're seeing hands-on. You might see it at recess, but please don't do that in the hallways. So we're working on that and verbal treatment. You know, if it meets the criteria, we're running HHB investigations. So, you know, things happen and people talk and whatever. I encourage people not to listen to Facebook, but to reach out to us. Well, I mean, it's like the telephone game. We played it and you know how it works. Something happens and by the end, it's a completely different matter. High school students are doing well, and honestly, in a lot of ways, the middle school students are doing what would be expected, and it's our job to adjust and help them to grow and learn through that developmental stage. But I don't think there's anything alarming happening, I can tell you that. So anyway, just encourage people to reach out, and had parents come in and have conversations, and it does help to clarify and make sure that we're all on the same page. So I hope that helps.
Could I ask a clarifying question? You may not have the answer to it yet, but I'm just curious if their number of incidences is on par with years past, or if it's more in some areas than others and less in some areas, and how?
Yeah. It's a great question. I'll be upfront with you. Our data collection system shifts year to year. So Alma, new system, data tracking's been interesting. But, you know, anyway, you're gonna see different patterns with different cohorts anyway. And so you really, you have to kind of listen to teachers and see what's going on. What are they noticing? We look at the office referrals and see what are we noticing. I know that's an odd answer, but honestly, I would prefer to have better statistical clarity, but we don't have that with Alma right now. Yeah. So, and with me, I'm not involved with discipline as much as what I used to be, but I do talk with Jessie repeatedly throughout the day. I see the referrals come through, and I've got to trust her judgment. And you know, if she's like, this data system isn't working, then we look into something else. So we'll see. But that's a good question, because you do kind of want hard numbers to look at.
Yeah.
But then again, you do what you do to make things better, you know, so.
All right. Anything else for Dana? Moving on to Bob.
Okay, so I sent out the cabinet report at the beginning of the month. Hopefully folks have that as well. I would say that started to settle into a little bit of a groove, maybe. But there's always some interesting stuff going on. I will say this, that the demands of the job do not commensurate with the number of students in each district. So while this district is the biggest and should, by nature of that fact, take about half my time, I've not been putting about half my time towards the work of this district. I don't think there's anything major falling down as a result of that, but it's fair for you guys to know that there's other districts with higher needs that are taking up more of my time. And so, yeah, I would say that's sort of the ebb and I assume there's an ebb and flow to that at some point. Things will level itself out, and you guys will become more needy. But it is just kind of getting used to how it goes. Yeah, I would say that I'm enjoying it still, and that's the important thing. But I'm happy to take any questions from any of the stuff in the report as well. Folks have questions, I'm happy to.
Any questions for Bob?
The one thing I'll put in as a plug, it was a little bit late coming out, but you have your SU board agenda. It's been sent out now. You should have that for Wednesday night. It's for the 7 o'clock here in this very room. And this is the big one. This is where the SU budget will be presented and potentially acted upon. whatever your guys' pleasure is, whoever your reps are. So make sure we have a quorum at that. It's important to get that SU budget going so that we can then see, as the district budgets get developed, what the implications are in those, so.
And, go ahead, Kate.
I have a detail question.
Sure.
I don't know if this is the right time or the right person to ask, but I know that there was an issue where the Newbrook, it sort of relates to Alma stuff, so I don't know if this comes to you, but there was an issue with when Newbrook was closed last week and there was no way to notify them, they showed an email, and I just, I don't know if that's something that's.
Yeah, what we discovered was that
system, if there's a way to.
Alma, with Power School, we used to have an add-on program that we had called K-12, Swift K-12. And you could do texting, phone calling, and emailing simultaneously to whatever collection of numbers you wanted to do it to. One of the limitations of Alma was that their add-on equivalent of that did not allow for multiple avenues at one time. So you had to pick, and so email became the preliminary communication tool. And of course, for things like that, which, if there's bad weather, maybe you can rely on people to look for their email. But when the well pump fails and you don't have, there's no reason to think there wouldn't be school, it wasn't sufficient. With the inclement weather coming that week as well, Matt, the IT director, and I got together, and he had already started the Parent Square rollout, but there was some challenges with that as well. And he wasn't ready to go live with that, but based on the Newfane experience and based on the weather that we were expecting last week, we put it into effect quicker. And I guess there was some gaps there too when we did that, the delayed start. He's still working through that. We hope that will be up and running, but we will be shifting fully to Parent Square, which has an app which you can get notifications through, as well as we can do all three again simultaneously.
So that will be in place for all the schools.
Yep.
Great,
Yep.
thanks.
As a Newbrook parent, I would say that the late start went significantly better in terms of alerting families.
Well, it was a little more advanced notice probably too, that helps.
It was helpful.
Yeah, so, yeah, we appreciate that. And I will do a shout out, Greg, I'm sure it's long gone, eating his pie by now, but the work with him to get the well company up to do that work, and they brought in, a big tanker or whatever of water to be able to get the school operational even for the next day, was a ton of work. So pretty thrilled with his work on that, and the well company did a great job as well. So it was quick.
Yeah, he's amazing, for sure. Back to our Wednesday meeting, Lan, you had said something earlier. You probably were going to raise it.
I was going to
Go ahead.
say in, but yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I am a voting member who will not be able to make that meeting, so I was wondering if there was anyone else on the board interesting that would like to be a proxy for that meeting. I don't know if Peter might be in the same boat as.
Well, I was gonna, it doesn't look like it matters because it doesn't look like there's anyone. Okay.
What time is this meeting?
7
People
p.m.
are killing me. Wednesday, oh.
Yeah.
Maybe I could just vote twice.
There you go. Double vote.
Left hand, right hand.
Yeah.
Can you incorporate a foot into that as well?
Yeah, there you go. Lie on my back.
Is
put them all
there
in the air.
anybody out there that we're missing that is not currently a voting member, part of that 6 out there? Sorry, I can't see everybody.
I'm one of the 6.
Yep, okay. Trying to remember, Crystal.
It's you,
Sarah?
Emily, Dana, Peter, and Leanne.
Okay. Crystal, would you be interested, or are you able?
When is it?
Wednesday at 7, right here?
Is there a Zoom option?
Yeah, I should be able to.
Okay.
If it's at 7 at night.
It is, yep.
Is there a Zoom option?
Okay.
I don't know if there is or not.
Do we need to appoint her in
Yeah,
this
there's a
meeting
Zoom.
to
I think so, we have to vote on it.
vote to appoint?
Yeah.
Okay. And are you also?
Yeah,
Will not be here?
yes.
Okay. I don't know if there's anybody else out there that
No,
is not.
Crystal and Emily are it.
Okay. Oh, Sarah. Sarah's out there.
Is Sarah here?
on.
Oh, I thought she went away.
Or Well, Sarah, are you out there?
Yeah, yep, I'm here.
Would you be able to attend on Wednesday at 7 o'clock?
Is there a Zoom option?
Yes.
Do we know?
There is a Zoom option, yes.
Sarah.
Poor Sarah, yeah.
Yeah, I could promise a Zoom option. I don't know if I can be there in person.
Fair enough. You can still vote via Zoom.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Perfect. Okay, so entertain a motion to appoint Sarah and Crystal as voting members for Wednesday's meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
All right, seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And just before we move to policies, I want to say, I first apologize. At the top of this, I should have said thank you to all veterans who have served our country, continue to serve our country. It's only a few days ago, and again, I apologize, should have said that right at the top. So, thank you, folks. All right, moving into policies.
All right, so what you have here is a list of policies that you've already warned initially last month. If you drew a line between D7 and C4, I can explain the differences. The first four are ones that are all required to adopt, none of which you already have. And you've already warned them as the language contained already, and these are all based on the VSBA model policies. The bottom ones are ones that are, some of them are required, some of them are recommended by VSBA. All of them are ones that you've had in another form, but on the website, and based on our records, we could not find an adoption date for those on the documents themselves. Rather than like going through all the minutes and trying to figure out when they were all adopted, based on the fact that the model policies have changed since then anyways, we just brought you the newer versions of them, but these are policies that you already had in a different form. So I'm sure they were adopted, but we don't have the dates on there because of the record keeping prior, and so we just figured we'd bring them forward to have you re-adopt with the new form. So you're not really gaining any new policies per se, other than the top ones I named are new to you because you didn't have them, but they're required. The bottom half are ones that you already had. So that's my little note on that.
That is a great distinction, Bob. And on the top ones, the top four that are new but required, is that language malleable per se?
So they're required, having a policy is required, and there might be elements of that that are part of the legislation that are required. There's probably the ability to make some shift to them, but the drafts that you have that you already warned once are based on the VSBA models that they put forward and tested through their legal team. Mm-hmm. So if you were going to make a change or someone wanted to talk about a change in one of those, that's absolutely fine, you can do that, but what we would have to do is make sure that the change that you want to look at isn't counter to the law that requires it to be in place, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
So we know what that would be, and we'd have to do a little research, but you could postpone adopting that one or more if you want to do that research.
Okay. And if we were to adopt these right now, can we adopt them as a slate? Unless there is something in one or more in particular that we wanted to pull out and
you could absolutely
discuss separately.
Absolutely do it as a group. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Was there something in particular people were asking about?
I had a question about a particular one.
Sure, go ahead, Lindsay.
On C15, which is the student conduct and discipline one.
Yep.
Under the definitions, it says that a knife means any instrument that is capable of ready use as a stabbing weapon that may inflict bodily injury or death. And I may or may not be holding one of those in my hand. This fits that description. And so I'm not comfortable with that as a description, as a definition. And then the second part of that being, under, what do they call it, administrative responsibilities, it basically talks about the plan and everything is about the plan, but, we don't know what that plan is right now, and so, we could like approve this as a thing, but that wouldn't necessarily be approving your plan.
So
And
the plans are, because they're under administrative responsibilities, that's basically procedure. In most cases, what you're talking about there are student handbooks or family handbooks in the elementary schools that they put out that include like, here's what happens if. Those are the plans that's referencing. So each school has their own separate ways of describing those, and obviously the secondary one is very different than what you see in elementary school.
Of course.
But that's what that includes. I also think you guys have a policy that was adopted a couple of years ago specific to weapons, which wouldn't be, I don't think, counter to this, but does allow for another layer around not having to move to an expulsion immediately, but having a superintendent conversation with a principal to kind of ascertain intent and that sort of thing.
Right.
So this is not about.
Like a Leatherman is different than a machete.
Right, and the nature of what it was and why it was there and who discovered it and who's bringing it forward. There's a whole lot of layers to that that you guys had done a couple of years ago. So that doesn't, I don't think that flies in the face of this, because this is about conduct and discipline in general, whereas that's the specific weapons one. So I guess we'd have to look at that one to see how that one defines knife, probably, to see is it different. But I feel like it's a similar kind of like, could be used as or intended to be used as kind of language. So.
I guess my personal preference would be to pull C-15 tonight and then compare it with our other policies that we have and make sure that we have something cohesive that everybody understands and agrees to, as opposed to saying, let's just do it.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Okay. All right, so we could make a motion to pull that and adopt the rest of the slate.
Yeah, so your motion would be to adopt, I would think you would name the others.
Right.
Just don't name this one.
Don't name C-15.
And then this one would stay out for further review and discussion.
Okay. Was there any?
And it's already been warned as is, so even if the review comes back and you decide after seeing the review that you don't want to change it, you could then adopt it immediately the next month, because you've already warned it once. So, Peter.
Is there any sort of previous policy that's related to VIII, the electronic communications between employees and students?
You did not have one.
Okay.
That isn't to say that there might not have been them in the individual districts prior to the merger, because I think that's what some of the ones that I found even after the merger I was dealing with from the Leland and Gray side, there were no policies. I was using the Leland and Gray old policy as a guide for myself.
Okay.
But the board, the Western board had not adopted them up until this point, so there may have been ones with the old districts, but not with the new merged district.
Okay. And you are comfortable with the wording of this policy and what it...
That one specifically?
Yes. I think as long... There are some things that are very vague in it, but I think that as long as you and administration are fine with it, particularly Dana, I'm sure that Leland and Gray I'm hoping that Leland and Gray have some more policies on this.
Well, there might be more description on outcomes, but the basic gist of this is like any electronic communications need to be appropriate. So I mean, I feel like I can support that. You know what I mean? Between staff and students.
Is there a specific part that felt?
Yeah, like normal, like you're emailing your teacher about an assignment, that's appropriate. You're not banning that type of communication. You're just saying that if you're going to communicate electronically, it must be done in an appropriate professional manner.
Was there anything in there that, or were you just asking more for their?
No, I have a specific example from when I was a student that I was uncomfortable with, and that is a coach having a Snapchat group, and they were the only adult on that Snapchat group with the rest of the team. To me, it's coming from scouts where that would not be allowed, it was very uncomfortable for me. Now, nothing happened that I know of from it, but it made me uncomfortable. And I just, so that is the specific example.
So that particular tool is what you're questioning specifically.
And I mean, and then there are many tools like it.
Sure, well, I think, so it defines social media, and it talks about, it doesn't get into specifics about being an only adult, but it does say that all communication shall be professional appropriate.
Is it the photo part of it, or I'm interested to
the fact that it disappears?
There's
no tracking?
Because I think it's an important point, but is it like a group text, teachers are in text context with students sometimes, right? But I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
No, I'm happy to talk about it. I'm the one who brought it up. Right, so what made me uncomfortable is, yes, mainly that it was through Snapchat, which has a lot of different connotations in the and uses, in that through having that as the official communication for the team, it was therefore supporting the students for having that teacher as a friend, and to me it promoted using that tool as an official tool for education, because that coach was also a full-time employee within the district, let's say, and so I felt that it was promoting that tool as an official use, where it is very much, in my opinion, should not be, because of how easy it is for that tool to be negatively used.
Just curious, was it kind of one of those meet the students where they're at, in terms of the coach thinking this is probably the easiest way to communicate with them? None of them are on Facebook anymore? Their mothers and grandmothers?
Well, actually, I think it was more, and it was trying to combat the fact that students, it is known that too few students actually check their emails regularly, and so was using this as a tool.
What you've described, unless it violates one of the things in 1 through 8 at the bottom of the page and the top of the second page, what you're describing would not be in violation of the policy.
Right.
So if that's not something the board is comfortable with, then.
But it could be a procedural issue as well.
Well, yeah, and right now you don't have a policy at all, which means anything is possible, including these things listed in 1 through, I mean, not possible, but you know what I'm saying, like they're not banned by a policy that the law requires you to have.
Right.
So you could you could tighten it, right? But you can't not have a policy because you're worried about that one particular social media.
Oh, no, I was not saying let's not adopt.
Yeah. So you could tighten it and say, you could add any communication through Snapchat, as an example, you could make that number 9 and add that language is banned completely.
Or we just keep the policy as is, and then procedurally, you strengthen it by narrowing it.
The procedures are only about the receipt of handling reports. So you'd have to, I think you'd want to put it in as a number 9, as a separate thing that you wanted to specifically state was not allowed.
Okay. Oh, Leanne, and then, sorry.
Do we have a policy committee at the moment? No. I was just wondering if the discussion of that, sounding like maybe there's a couple that might warrant some review based on the general feeling of the room.
Okay.
I would say as we get more granular, it seems that might not be a bad idea. Like I sort of glossed over these are, work for everybody, but looking at some of the, also those sort of finer language points here, I would want to know that it really works. But for example, communications between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., unless it's public post, does that make sense for how teachers do their work today? How folks, as one example, I don't know, maybe it does, maybe there are already things in place. I know in other workplaces, folks catch up late at night, for example.
That might be more of a throw towards the fact that you want kids in bed at a reasonable time.
Right.
Whether or not that's realistic or not, I don't know, but that's probably what
I
that's
just
more
in
about.
terms of like if we're gonna get granular or communications related to personal or confidential information regarding employer student that isn't academically focused, I don't know how that overlaps with like safe reporting standards and stuff like that, and if that gets reported out anyway, or, and maybe this is a conversation with Dave if we'll have a policy committee, but otherwise.
I wonder if it would make sense to have some piece added in that basically stipulates that like communications are kept. Like if there's emails that like you have something to look back at. So like a Snapchat that disappears doesn't fall into that category.
So archival approach.
Right, that things are, because I mean, that's sort of the part of the point, right? Like if you're having communication that would or would not be appropriate, if no one else saw it, then it wouldn't, there would be no way to check.
It's a fair point.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Actually, no, Dana raised his hand and I want to hear it.
Sorry.
If appropriate, I just like, I don't know that it's in here, but use your school accounts, use your school platforms would help to, you talk about Snapchat, no, it shouldn't be on your personal account. It better be on your school account with a school platform.
Yeah, and I know as someone who dabbles, let's say in IT, there's a lot of ways to do oversight for certain apps that is very good just to have as that sort of archive backup that IT will just have logs. But
Emily has her hand up. Okay. Go ahead, Emily.
Oh, thanks. I would just, I'm going to repeat something that I've been hearing for years about required policies. And we shouldn't be adopting policies we're not comfortable with as a board, but required policies are really thoroughly vetted, I know, and Joe will be able to speak to this a lot more down the road as he takes his role at the SBA board. But required policies, when we mess around with those, we have to be very careful about doing that. So I would suggest that we make sure we get some legal reason for why we keep policies. The recommended language in required policies stays the way it is. There's a reason for it. And then the changes happen usually under the procedures. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. It's our policy. We get to make the decision, but I just really caution us on that. And we've been told that for years. Don't change the language in required policies.
Thank you, Emily.
I can add to that, having been a VSBA board member for like 2 months now and attended a couple of meetings, that it is highly suggested that if you change any required policy at all, that you have your own legal review done, because these, as Emily said, are thoroughly vetted by VSBA legal staff, and this is what you are compliant if you adopt the adopt the required policy with the language that's given you. If there are options for you, like in F4, they tell you there's an option, but otherwise this is what you should do. And if you don't want to do that, again, it's your policy, you can do whatever you want, but get competent legal advice, because you may be, not complying with statute when you start monkeying around with it.
For sure.
Good view.
would it be possible to send this policy through so that we have it installed and then talk about it more? Like if we get a policy committee, talk about it more at a later time and just revise it at a later time?
Yeah,
like there's not like you can't touch this policy
no, there's always a bring it up again.
Then I actually think that I would be most comfortable doing that, just so that we have this in place. At the Kate did make a really great point that administration might want to point out to their teachers particularly that time one. I can think of actually a couple of examples that would not have met that when I was a student.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm totally interrupting you. It says specifically in here that under procedures, that the superintendent shall develop procedures for both the receipt and handling of reports, but that's it. And it seems like everything that we're talking about could just be solved if we added a thing under procedures that said, and procedures also about conduct or whatever, like what this means. Things like use school accounts, please. That doesn't say anything about that in here, but that's a lovely point. And, you know, our administration should have the ability to implement those procedures that they would like to implement.
We're talking about B8, is it?
Yeah. Under number 2B, whatever it is, 2B.
Or not to be.
Is where it talks about the procedures. We just need more procedures, that's all.
Well, okay, right, so it says shall develop procedures, right? And procedures are always separate from the policy, right?
It's just
So
the
you will-
procedures indicated don't include what we're talking about. They only include the receipt and handling of reports.
But the
It
but the
doesn't-
reports are for the certain kinds of, if you look at 2A, I think, inappropriate content of electronic communication.
But
reports.
that is not saying that you cannot develop procedures related to this that are outside of.
Yeah, you can always go tighter.
Yeah.
You just don't want to go looser.
Right, exactly. So they're not restricted to this in the procedure.
Oh, I thought that was indicated earlier that it was sort of restricted to that. That's not the case.
Well, the policy says, develop procedures for both the receipt and handling of reports filed on this policy. It doesn't designate the superintendent to develop procedures for anything else. So what the policy says does not give me the ability to create additional procedures to further
if we
procedurize
want
this.
those procedures, additional procedures, what would the wording look like?
I guess I'm still not sure what you're looking for, because there's so many things listed that are the conduct that you can't do. I guess I don't know what a procedure would, like if you want to specifically ban a particular thing, or you're looking to limit employees to only use employer-provided accounts. Those are the kinds of things you're talking about?
Yeah, that type of stuff, but I just think that currently, this policy does not provide our administrators with the ability to tighten things as they would like to potentially tighten things.
That is correct.
I want to give them that ability so that, sorry, I'm losing my voice, so that so that they can have a comfortable hold on what appropriate conduct is. And I think tightening might be beneficial. Right, I don't know that I, as a board member, need to say specifically what that is. I just want my administrators to have the ability to do that thing. Sorry, I'm totally losing my voice.
I guess my suggestion would be to adopt it as is, and then let's see how it plays out, because right now, the staff isn't aware of any of these 8 things that they can't do.
Of course.
So I think if Dana, particularly, and I think we're talking more like high school coaches and those sorts of, roll out the communication, here's what you can't do, and then what are the implications of that as he starts to see that come back, then we could come to you guys with like, hey, we want you to adopt a line that says we want to be able to do X, Y, and Z, rather than just having carte blanche ability to develop procedures to do anything. Like, I just feel like the policy should limit what we can do as well. It shouldn't give us sort of a huge array of things we can do, you know what I'm saying? Like, the policy should be limiting. And so, unless it designates a procedure to develop something further. So, I guess I would keep it as is and then let us see how it plays itself out. And like the example that Peter gave, like if something like that were to occur, then, Dana can figure out, well, what should have happened, what could have happened, how could this policy direct people to do it in a way that is safe for kids? And then we could figure that out as it plays itself out, I guess. I don't know.
Sounds fair. Go ahead, Pete. Sorry, and then Kate.
Sorry.
Kate, I think you were.
Yeah.
You haven't spoken on the matter.
I was just gonna say, I think the suggestion that we adopt for now, but that we come back and amend, but also that we ask the principals and staff and our superintendent to look at these more closely and see if they really are workable. I know that there's like a lot of, these have been pretty carefully fly-spec'd, but it doesn't mean that if there are some specific things we shouldn't think about it. Likewise, I would assume with big things like, I would hope that we have other places catching and letting teachers know that they should only be communicating from school accounts, for example. So we have these policies, but I hope that this isn't it in terms of guidance for district staff.
I mean, staff handbooks, they usually have some level of description.
You say that. How many cell phones do we provide to teachers? So that's texting is right out. How many teachers have Facebook accounts from the school?
I mean,
None.
School doesn't provide that.
Right. No, school provided accounts. You've limited it to email.
Right, but for email communication, that's important.
Fine, but if you're texting your student about it, or your student texts you, I mean, I think that, we're micromanaging this to death. What Bob said about your communications with students have to be appropriate on social media. Social media platforms, there's new ones all the time, and things go away and come in vogue and out of vogue. And I think the whole idea of the policy is you need to communicate respectfully and appropriately with your students, and then beyond that, just do it.
Sure. I mean, I think there's a difference between these policies and the framework that's in place, and I think that's what I'm saying. Like, these policies shouldn't specify social media apps because those change year to year, and it's our job to have language that's broad enough, right, that encompasses them, but also on the ground that folks know what's going on. We don't say, oh, there's a policy to deal with it. We don't think about that. And I think, I will say that teachers should be communicating, I think, from their accounts. Their West River accounts is really important. If they're not, they should know that. I mean, if you've ever been involved in discovery in a lawsuit, that's like, that your teachers should want to do that for their own protection, for starters.
But students don't read emails, so then the teachers have to meet them where they are, and the coaches
got it. I mean, we could have this after. I just think
whatever.
Yeah.
I know exactly where you're coming from.
I think I think the key issue, what I would say is the key issue is that coaches and things like that are going to use text groups. They're just going to. There really isn't a way to avoid that because that's the best way to communicate with kids and to get responses. The key part is 1 through 8. What is in those texts, right?
Absolutely.
And if a student wants to complain about something in that text, what happens?
But if we don't have the ability to tighten procedure, then there's no ability to track any of those things. There's no ability to say.
The complaint would have to come from, so let's say Peter had a complaint about something that was inappropriate in those conversations he was talking about. He screenshots it, he brings it to Dana, Dana looks at it, now we have the evidence to support that.
Or he doesn't screenshot it and he just says it, and now you don't have a place in
Of
your
course,
procedures where you have
Yep.
the ability to tighten it.
Right, no, I hear that, but I mean, I think that that's the nature of a complaint is you usually have evidence to support your complaint, right? And you come in and you show the evidence and the.
But we currently don't even have the, I don't know, all right.
It might be worth asking our VSBA rep to ask about specific apps or kinds of social media that are not okay. I mean, we can get those lists. There are plenty of people who track what kids are doing and track the
honestly,
legal parameters, and I think
Parent Square and things like that can be used by staff to communicate with groups of kids. They create their own groups and they communicate using that. If the kids have the app and they just do that. There are ways to use school technologies other than email to communicate. The challenge is getting kids to do that. But if the staff know that it's in their safety to do it in a certain way, which can be designated just in a staff handbook, you don't need a procedure or a policy to do that. Dana can just say that in the staff handbook, here's what you should do. And then it's part of the staff handbook. I mean, it doesn't take board action to do that, I guess is what I'm saying. The board action is like, here's the conduct that we think is inappropriate, and so don't do it.
Yeah, I don't feel like anybody has any issues with the policy. It's just that maybe there should be the ability to be more specific if needed, because it is reasonably vague. Be appropriate, right? Like.
Well, there's 8 things. I mean, if you read all 8 of them, some of them are pretty specific.
I did read the policy. I understand. I just.
I think it's a better than what you have right now, which is
Certainly.
nothing. And it's a
Yeah.
starting place to see where it goes, and then we can talk about the nature of what the specificities you want to tighten up as you go. But if there's not a problem to solve,
Yeah.
then you don't have to solve it yet, you know?
Do you have something new, Peter?
I will.
Please make it new.
I was just gonna say, yes, let's make sure that we just talk about this later.
Okay. All right. So, can we adopt, or is everybody in agreement that we'll adopt all of them? And then at some point, if need be, move it to the.
Was that C15
I
or
would like
not?
to pull C15 still.
You select both C15. Okay.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to adopt F4, B8, D7, C4, C7, A20, A21, A22, and appoint Lindsay head of the policy committee. Keep me until 9:30. All in favor?
I second that. Any discussion? Please no.
I think Joe volunteered himself, that's what I think.
Oh, no,
At my
no.
house, when kids say, that was so-and-so's chore, it's automatically theirs. You don't get to, oh, it was so-and-so's thing that got left out. As soon as you throw someone under the bus, it's your chore. That's how it works in my house.
All right, so we do have a motion in a second, but let's pull that part out.
I'll take that part out, I wasn't serious.
Yeah, I will with my second.
I'll take
as well.
head of the policy committee, but you gotta go to the meeting at 7 on Wednesday.
All right, we have a motion in a second. And I believe we've had discussion, hopefully.
Yeah.
All good? All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, folks. Budget committee meeting dates. I don't know if Lori's still on.
Lori's
or if
there.
we wanted to-
Oh my gosh, she is.
Oh,
Sorry,
we
Lori.
woke her from.
Oh. She's in her
Hi.
green background.
So do we still know who's on the policy committee? Not the policy committee, the budget committee.
I was, Joe
I am.
was, Leanne, you were, right? Yeah, she's trying to hide over there.
Yeah.
And Dana, I think, right?
I think that sounds right.
Sounds
Yeah,
right.
that does
Yeah.
sound right.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm looking at November 29th or 30th, or December 6th or 7th.
29:30.
And you're trying to fit in how many prior to the December 11th meeting?
I think we've only done one prior, and then we get feedback from the board, and then we do another one post.
All right, so the first draft would hope to be present at that December 11th regular meeting, so.
What time were we thinking on those days that you presented?
I'm good 29th or 30th. And 6th or 7th. I'm fine any of those days.
Yeah.
Depending on when we start, but yeah.
Yeah, I should be, again, depending on start time.
What time do you all want to start? Like 2 in the afternoon, maybe? Just kidding,
Well,
of
you're
course.
funny.
Could start as early as 5:30.
5:30?
Laughter's out at 5 next session.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 5:30 would work.
5:30?
I'm trying to be nice, Laura.
And we're speaking for Dana, so 5:30. Yeah, good, Dana.
He's on board, I'm sure he's on board.
Yeah.
Oh, with all the snow.
Okay, so which date worked?
I think we said any of those dates, so whatever's best for you.
Okay, wow. Okay, so I guess I would probably prefer one more week to get everything together. So how about the 6th?
Sold.
Okay.
On
6th.
Well, you know, there is a WCSU full board meeting on the 29th potentially. So if we did, and there's one on the 6th too. So if we did it just before that meeting, does that sound good? So 5:30 would work.
And those are subject to SU budget being adopted.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm thinking if we do it the 29th, there's the 6th. We don't usually go 3 meetings with WCSU. That's why I'm saying.
So the 6 should be safe.
So the 6th should be safe, so.
Okay.
All right, let's go with the 6th.
Perfect. Would you mind sending out an invitation?
I'll send an invite.
Excellent. Great. Public comment. They have all left the building. I will entertain that final motion.
Oh, motion to adjourn.
Second? Anybody?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Lindsay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. We're adjourned. Thanks, folks. Next meeting, December 11th.